How come yoga and meditation have such a profound impact on mental health? Dr. Bessel van der Kolk shows us the research. How does movement impact mental and emotional health? Discover the connection between yoga, meditation, and healing trauma with Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Stay tuned for the next videos. We will be showing Dr. Bessel van der Kolk further explanation.
Working with body workers because I knew that it's important to not shut your body down, because these feelings are so terrifying that you experience when a tragedy happens to you that you try not to feel. So drug addiction is almost invariably the result associated with trauma. People take drugs in order not to feel.
So they're self-medicating and
numb
numbing
themselves out so your internal world becomes dangerous. And so you need to open yourself up. So I was into body work before I got into yoga, and then we learned about something called heart rate variability, which is a measure of how your brain organizes the rhythms in your body. And if you have bad heart rate variability, you tend to become ill, overwhelmed, freaked out, get heart attacks, get cancer. And if you have very good heart rate variability, you are able to be calm, focused, and your body is much healthier. And then we discovered that you can train your brain through yoga. And so
now you actually did a study on this that showed it.
We were funded by the National Institute of Health to do a yoga study on people who had years of trauma, who had tried everything, never got better. And our results were spectacular, actually, that people got better on yoga than any study has ever been done on drugs for PTSD. Good day.
It's great to have you on, and I've really enjoyed reading your book, particularly, you know, talking about yoga, because Heidi and I both do yoga.
Yes, my mother has been doing yoga for what, 30 plus years?
Yeah, 30 plus years. And
it's, you've gotten me into it, you've gotten the whole family into it, and it is really life-changing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are other systems that you talk about doing, other exercises and other types of things you do too, because some people are like, I don't want to, you know, do yoga and that kind of thing. But let's talk about, starting about your book, The Body Keeps Score. Why did you name it The Body Keeps Score?
Because that's what the people I was working with were talking about, and that they could forget about their trauma. And then when we did brain scans, we saw that all these areas of stress hormones were lit up. When we measured people's stress hormones, they are elevated, and people experience their trauma with their guts and their heart, and they break down and they collapse and they flee and they fight and they fight and they become angry. There's all this primitive part of the body and the brain is there to defend and attack and run away and collapse. It's very, very primitive. It's nothing to do with
Let's show a picture
thinking.
of that, because I think we've got a picture of what the body looks like in that kind of trauma.
It's kind of a fight or flight, right, Bessel?
Fight, flight, and freeze.
And freeze,
and collapse.
okay.
And that's the other big part.
Wow.
When you give up, the big piece about trauma is say, my God, this is too horrendous. I will never get over this.
Yes.
There's nothing I can do. And then your whole system changes.
Yeah, look at
And in some ways turns on itself. And because stress hormones are very good for us. It makes us active, able to do things, stay up late nights. But when you cannot do anything, you get held down or frozen, or you just go like, oh my God. Then the stress hormones get turned against you and set up panic reactions and terror and fear and rage. So you actually need to rechannel agitation.
Oh, okay.
You know, when you talk about that, when I heard the phone call, heard that my son had been killed with his cousin in an automobile accident, of course, I froze, I fell to the floor, I screamed, I, you know, cried, I, you know, did whatever, just, and as a nurse, I've seen other people do that, just the, you know, how you fall apart. And I didn't start working with my body probably for maybe 2 years. And then I started into yoga and doing that. But it is a horrendous experience to have that adrenaline rush. And also my cousin's son was killed too, and so there were two parents and two moms, two fathers and two mothers, and one thing I noticed is we all lost 5 pounds in 2 days or a day.
Metabolism went like crazy.
The adrenaline is just like whoosh.
And you become speechless, and it's meaningless. You know, you cannot say, oh, if I just talk about it enough it will go away, because it has no meaning.
Right.
So you can just, it is horrifying, and your body stays in that state of horror and terror and helplessness.
What happened to you when you lost your brother?
The same thing, and it is, your body is in that place of horror and terror and helplessness, and you think it's never going to change.
Right. Right.
You're like, okay, this is my life
Right.
forever.
I'd like to say something about it,
Yes.
because that feeling of it will never go away is because a little part of your brain shuts down, the timekeeper of your brain, and so you're trapped in that moment. And you don't see the past and the future anymore.
Right.
And then, you know, for example, when you do yoga, which is just one way of helping you, you hold the pose that may be very unpleasant for 5 breaths and maybe very uncomfortable. And your yoga teacher says, hold it for 5. And you're able to do it for 1, 2. No, I'm not going to do it. But you keep, and you re-establish a sense of time. When you start counting your breath, you notice what happens next. So the issue is to re-establish the sense of time, and you do that by noticing what happens in your body also. So when you start feeling uncomfortable, then the thing you ask yourself, what happens next? When you meditate, you may get a cramp. You say, I'm having a cramp. I wonder what's going to happen to that cramp. Not like I have to avoid it, but my body is going to do something with that.
Yeah.
And then you notice that your body has its way of dealing with stuff. So you re-establish the sense of time in a very subtle way.
And so you're not fighting you're not fighting it, you're just kind of leaning into it.
Well, you fight, but
And it doesn't help.
because you're a fighter.
I wanted to show a picture of Heidi's sister who has a yoga studio in Redwood City, California called Vibe. And she certainly shows in this picture how the body, you know, leans into it and does it.
Absolutely, and I think the interesting thing about yoga, and I know Bessel can speak to this too, is when you go into a yoga class and you do yoga, sometimes it can open you up and you can feel extremely emotional, or you see people around you getting teary-eyed.
And
while
there's
they're doing
Rebecca
yoga.
in her red tie and pink tights, Heidi. That's
Yes.
Heidi's sister. So
Right.
That's her doing
getting
the yoga
into
pose.
getting into the poses and releasing the fact that she lost her brother
Exactly.
and helping other people do that. You know, I want to talk a little bit about the breath, because I was fascinated in your book how you talk about it. I didn't ever think about it, even though breath work is when you breathe in, it excites the sympathetic nervous system, and when you breathe out, it calms the
calms you down.
system. And
Right.
I never thought of how, I knew that, you know, we did the breath work and everything, but I never thought about what it does.
That's how I got into yoga. I already was.
How yoga practice could impact those who have experienced trauma. Well, let's delve into the intriguing connection between yoga and trauma healing. You see, trauma often disconnects individuals from their bodies, creating a chasm between mind and body that can be challenging to bridge. This is where yoga comes into play. By gently guiding practitioners back into their bodies, yoga helps to re-establish this vital connection. The calming and centering nature of yoga also plays a significant role in trauma healing. Yoga teaches us to focus on the present, to breathe and to find balance, all of which can help to quiet the mind and alleviate the anxiety and hypervigilance often associated with trauma. Furthermore, yoga promotes overall well-being, enhancing physical health while also supporting emotional and mental resilience. In essence, yoga serves as a tool to navigate the journey of healing from trauma. How important, would you say, is talk therapy in treating trauma? Talk therapy holds a pivotal role in treating trauma. It acts as a safe space where individuals can voice their experiences and emotions, thereby processing their trauma. This form of therapy fosters understanding and helps in developing coping mechanisms, making it an essential part of trauma treatment. Now let's bring yoga into the picture. Yoga, with its emphasis on breath control, meditation and specific body postures, complements talk therapy beautifully. While talk therapy delves into the psychological aspects of trauma, yoga addresses the physical and mental manifestations of the same. It helps in releasing the pent-up stress and tension that often gets stored in the body post-trauma. So imagine the two together. Talk therapy providing the understanding and coping strategies, and yoga offering a way to release stress and achieve mental calm. It's a comprehensive approach to trauma therapy. So while talk therapy helps in processing traumatic experiences, yoga aids in the physical and mental healing. What does the evidence show as far as yoga's efficacy in trauma healing? This question prompts us to delve into the realm of scientific research, where the power of yoga in trauma healing is not merely anecdotal, but supported by numerous studies.
Research from the Trauma Center at Justice Resource Institute in Massachusetts reveals that yoga can significantly reduce post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. In another study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology, participants who engaged in yoga reported decreases in symptoms of depression and anxiety, both common in individuals who have experienced trauma. Further evidence comes from a study in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine, demonstrating that yoga can improve physical and psychological health outcomes in individuals with chronic diseases, a group often marked by trauma. These are just a few examples of how scientific research is continually affirming yoga's role in trauma healing. Clearly, the evidence backs up the transformative power of yoga in trauma healing. We know yoga works, but what about other techniques like EMDR, neurofeedback and theatre? Let's delve into these a bit. EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, uses guided eye movements to help process traumatic memories and change how they're responded to. It's like reprogramming your brain's response to past trauma. Neurofeedback, on the other hand, is a type of biofeedback that uses real-time displays of brain activity to teach self-regulation. It's about harnessing the power of your own mind to heal. Theatre, while it may seem unconventional, can also be an effective therapy. Immersing oneself in a role allows for expression and exploration of emotions in a safe environment. It's about telling your story, but through a different lens. Each of these techniques, including yoga, offers unique benefits and can be combined for a holistic approach to trauma therapy. Does yoga also promote connection for this population? And is the mainstream healthcare system beginning to recognize yoga as an effective treatment for trauma? Indeed, it does. Through the practice of yoga, individuals who have experienced trauma often find a sense of connection to their bodies that they may have lost. This connection extends beyond the self, fostering a sense of community and shared experience among trauma survivors. As to the question of yoga's recognition within mainstream healthcare, the tide is indeed turning. Increasingly, healthcare professionals are acknowledging the profound benefits yoga can have on mental health, specifically in the realm of trauma recovery. A growing body of research is supporting this trend, providing empirical evidence of yoga's efficacy in treating trauma. As more and more people and institutions recognize the power of yoga in trauma healing, we can hope for a more integrated, holistic approach to mental health in the future. Next, we have a special segment featuring Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a renowned expert in the field of trauma treatment. Dr. Bessel has been an outspoken advocate for the use of yoga as a therapeutic tool, particularly in treating trauma. He argues that yoga's focus on mind-body connection can help individuals regain control over their bodies and their lives. When a person starts feeling their body, they start feeling their life, and that's the first step towards healing, says Dr. Bessel. He further emphasizes the importance of integrating techniques like yoga into mainstream healthcare to offer a comprehensive approach to mental health. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into Dr. Bessel's insights on the transformative power of yoga in trauma healing.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
it's a very powerful technique.
So they got better with yoga than any drug that they would.
Yeah, so if you compare this effect size, you call it, of yoga, it was bigger than any drug that has ever been studied.
That's
And
amazing.
you get a hell of a lot more money to do drug studies
right.
than you do for yoga studies, I can assure you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. You know, one of the problems with it for people is it's so easy for people to give them a pill to pop rather than finding a yoga class and spending some time. But the long term of it is really bad.
I think that's the big issue. In our culture, we want speedy results.
Yes.
The doctors want speedy results and the patient wants speedy results. And people don't really want to take the time to own themselves anymore.
Right.
And in that regard, there are really no shortcuts. You need to do it, you need to practice inhabiting yourself and befriending yourself and befriending what happens inside of you. And of course you can take drugs and make the feelings go away, but with that the feeling of pleasure, engagement, motivation, excitement will also go away.
And also you have stomach problems, there are all sorts of
Sleep problems.
So the price you pay for a cheap solution is major side effects.
Yeah.
But owning your body, and of course it's not only yoga. You know, I think that a lot of these techniques that people have practiced in Asia, Tai Chi, drumming in Africa, movement, dancing, tango
Singing.
dancing. I'm sure it was a post-traumatic technique, getting in tune and rhythm with people and just doing it right like that. There's always of restoring your synchrony with yourself and with the people around you.
Yeah, I love the idea of the singing and the dancing
Yeah.
healing us.
Yes.
I didn't realize that they had a healing factor until
Well,
I
we
read
lost
your
all of
book.
that. You know, as long as people are primitive,
Right.
that's what they do.
Okay.
But once
yeah.
we become all civilized and drive our cars
Well,
on the freeways, we sit like and pop another pill.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's hear from Lynn Perchant right now and
Yep,
have her come in. And Lynn has developed a whole bunch of body work, and it's going to be interesting to hear her. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Gloria. Hi, Heidi.
Good to see you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Bessel.
All right, Lynn, tell us that you lost a...
Yes, my husband died in 1984 at the Living Dying Project. We worked with Stephen and Andrea Levine and with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And then my sister died later from breast cancer in 2002.
Wow.
Both of them dealt with cancer for 13 years, quite extraordinary length of time for both of them. And I had done so much work in personal exploration when I lost my husband that it was actually shocking that the impact of sibling loss was so profound and so deep, and there was such little help available in the area of working with bereaved siblings. So my heart is always, I always say I do my work in honor of my husband Mark and my sister Donna.
Yeah.
They're two of my greatest teachers. And so my...
And were you doing this work before Donna died?
I was doing the work before Donna
Okay.
died. Donna died in 2002, Mark in 1984. But we're talking about the body, and for me, it was about 8-9 months after Mark died, and I felt that I couldn't keep talking about it
Yeah.
because there was not enough result or shift. And I had a body work session with somebody, and it was the first time that I actually felt myself, my skin, my body. And in the case of being a bereaved spouse, my main source of touch was gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You were touch deprived.
I was very touch deprived.
And he was only in his 30s. He was young.
He was 36, I was 35.
That's unbelievable. And so here you are, this young widow without, like you said, your husband, and you're touch deprived.
Touch deprived, and it didn't, I was a physical education teacher and very active my personality is very somatically engaged. As I talk, it shows itself. I did not realize the impact of that first body work session because afterward I had no words, whereas before it was words I was depending on to attempt to express what was going on that was beyond words.
Right.
So something registered for me as I began to re-inhabit my body. And actually 6 years ago I broke my leg and had a near-death experience, and it took me a while before I realized, like the Henry James poem, I was living alongside my body. And that yoga and body work and being just so physically intense and active was how I started to heal the trauma of having broken my leg.
Now, if someone's watching this show right now, and I know you do a lot of work with the body, what would you suggest to them? They're, really not in touch with their body. What would be an early thing that they could do?
Well, they can start by there's something that I teach, which is an old Buddhist practice, metta bhavana, which is left hand to the heart, right hand.
Let's try that.
On
Left hand.
top, taking a breath, and then exhaling, just so that I can feel that I'm here to touch
like
my
this.
own heart. And oftentimes, when clients come and I meet them for the first time when they arrive at the
Just
door,
feel your own heart.
I will give them a hand hug. My nature is that of being a hugger, yet to respect the other would be to reach out and then take their hand and literally embrace it, so they know
I like that, a hand hug.
it's
I like
a
that.
hand hug. And to start gently with people, because we all have our own history about how willing we are to be hugged or touched, and to make no assumptions.
Right.
And yet, what I recognize in the grief work that I do is that people are often touch deprived because we isolate.
I remember an evening, a few years back, shivering in fear, unable to escape the chains of my past trauma. I was caught, stuck in a loop of events that seemed to replay over and over again in my mind. It was as if my life was a broken record, skipping back to the same haunting melody, the rhythm of my past dictating my present. The echoes of my trauma were overwhelming, a tidal wave of emotions that left me gasping for air, drowning in my own despair. It was a place where I felt trapped, ensnared within the ironclad walls of my own mind. And the worst part? The feeling of utter helplessness, like being lost in an endless maze with no exit in sight. But then, amidst this turmoil, I stumbled upon something that held a glimmer of hope. I felt lost until I discovered a book that promised a new perspective on trauma and healing. I was skeptical at first, but as I delved into the pages of The Body Keeps the Score, I found myself on a transformative journey. The way Bessel van der Kolk intertwined scientific insights with gritty, real-life stories was nothing short of enlightening. It was like peeling back layers of understanding, each chapter revealing a deeper truth about trauma and its profound impact. One thing that struck me was how the book emphasized the physicality of trauma. It wasn't just a mental or emotional ordeal, it was deeply rooted in the body. And this was a revelation. The idea that our bodies can hold on to traumatic experiences and that these can manifest in physical ways was a game changer. The book also stressed the importance of body-focused therapies in dealing with trauma. It was like discovering a new language to articulate my experiences. As I turned the last page, I felt a shift, a new understanding of my trauma, and a glimmer of hope for healing. Armed with the knowledge from Bessel van der Kolk's book, I began to see my trauma in a new light. I realized that trauma isn't just an emotional or psychological wound, it's a physical one too. It engraves itself onto our bodies, altering the way we perceive and interact with the world. This was a revelation. I discovered the power of therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, a technique that uses eye movements to help the brain process traumatic memories. I also learned about the healing potential of yoga, an ancient practice that unifies the mind and body, helping to release pent-up trauma. These insights didn't just stay on the pages of the book. They seeped into my life, guiding me on a path to recovery. I began to recognize my trauma, to confront it, to work through it, rather than letting it define me. The book didn't magically erase my trauma, but it gave me the tools and the courage to face it. And that, I believe, is the first step towards healing.
Because we feel so alone, it's kind of counterintuitive. We feel so alone. I know I did it. I isolated more. And so just bringing somebody into that space. And when I do body work along with grief counseling, we start with the verbal, but we work then afterward, we shift into working with the body. And I use Tibetan bowls and Tibetan bells and tuning forks and of course soothing music, because on the Candace Pert's work describes the body as the portrayal of the subconscious. And so many of us are walking around thinking that we're putting on, metaphorically and realistically, a good face so that we don't upset those people around us.
Right.
Because we don't want to lose them. We've had loss.
So you and I could do a hand hug.
Do a hand
I like
hug.
that.
And
We could do a hand hug. Like that.
And it's
nice.
Bring
And
that to
what about self? Is there rocking? Are there things that you can do for yourself?
Well, at the ADEC conference in San Antonio, Amy Chow showed us how to do this butterfly hug,
I like that.
which I
To
taught
yourself.
during a phone session the other day.
Interesting.
I said, I understand you're holding the phone. Put it down for a moment and just here, and just do a butterfly hug. And she said, I feel tingling.
Wow.
And this is a young woman who just lost her husband suddenly. And she's also struggling with finding ways. Now, she does yoga, and she's very active. And I've developed something that I call degrieving body work, because for me it was so revealing, and also my mind was observing what was going on because I'm a teacher. So my experience becomes part of what I then explore to delve more deeply and teach. And so when I work with a grieving client, I often don't do the formal body work on the table for a couple of sessions, because I want them to really feel that they've been heard. One of my premises is that grief's the most untapped personal resource for physical and emotional transformation.
Wow, say that again.
Grief is the most available, untapped emotional resource for personal transformation.
That's unbelievable.
And
About that.
this
For
case,
person, you
I
can
would-
transform.
Yes.
I would include trauma.
Yes. And I like the idea that people have to be acknowledged and validated and heard before they can move forward.
Yes.
Oftentimes, and I know in sibling loss, we really feel like the unacknowledged people, and that we're not heard. It's such a minimized loss.
Yes, I'm actually writing a chapter for a book that's going to be published. And the professionals that approached the publishing company had to convince them about the need.
Yeah.
Whereas we can pick up any number of books on spousal loss and child loss. Sibling loss, I feel, is probably the most underrated loss. Exactly what you said. I thought Donna would be with me to experience the aging process. And the shock of her young death at 49 really was beyond words. And taught me, she's a very dear friend who lost his son said that his son lived in the 5th chamber of his heart. And we know we have 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. So it's a metaphoric place where we can relocate them.
Right.
So the body work for some people is the first time that not only have they really been touched compassionately, because the hands are an extension of the heart, it's the first time that they could actually release the emotions that they were holding back, because they didn't know who would be able to be there to witness that and allow that. Because Elizabeth, whom I worked with personally, said when we hand somebody tissues as they cry, sometimes it shuts them down.
Yeah.
Right.
You're giving them a message.
That's right.
And I know it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross you're talking about, just because I don't hand people tissues, It's like, okay, you're saying, calm down, you're going to be okay.
Right, tissues can be nearby.
Right.
If that grieving individual needs to reach out to deal with their tears, they know where the tissues are. If I interrupt their process of expression, then I am assuming that it's time for them to wipe their eyes.
Okay, Lynn, I'm watching and I'm thinking, I don't know, you're probably not in my area. What can I do for myself right now as far as, you're telling me that I can transform with this, and I'm thinking, wow, you mean this could, something good could happen to this? I can't believe it. Where do I start? Where do you start?
I think that's an excellent. For me, as a bodywork teacher, that's one modality that is tremendously beneficial. So we were talking, I'm also a yoga teacher. We're talking about yoga. We're really talking about if somebody is in therapy, and it's verbal therapy, that they ask their therapist, do you know somebody who is either trained or compassionate enough to allow me to express the depth of what I'm holding in because I don't know where it's safe to release this. And so all conventional therapists, highly trained, well stocked with wonderful information, would really be wonderful to have resources where if somebody asks you, Heidi, where can I get some of this, that you know, body workers, yoga therapists, expressive art therapists, who will not be afraid when somebody allows the expression. We have a choice to repress or express, internalize, and I learned with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross the value of the externalization process. So I'm training body workers, and I could be a resource.
Bessel, I wanted you to comment on what Lynn's saying, or any thoughts you have about the body.
One reaction is that you said something about the unconscious. No, now because we live in our cars and go up elevators, we forget that the function of our brain is to take care of our body.
Yes, our vehicle.
And the moment our bodies go, we're gone. It's all about our bodies moving in sync with other bodies. That's what life is about. And as we talk to each other, you're nodding and you're sort of moving your body in sync with me. That's what life is about. The moment you freeze, all communication stops. And it's all physical communication. It has to do with mating and making children and rearing children. And all this stuff is about bodies that do stuff together. And when you get traumatized, hurt, you have a body that's hurt. When you get angry, you have a body that's angry. When you get depressed, you have a body that's depressed. And everything that goes with it. Everything, when somebody is depressed, you can see that somebody is depressed because their bodies are collapsed. And when, as a body worker, you can feel how the things are flaccid, and when people are angry, they're tight and uptight. When a person is mentally uptight, they're physically uptight, and they get physical problems. I mean, we have this weird mind-body separation, and we talked about South Africa, and how South Africa, just people walk down the street, and you see bodies walking down the street. Yeah, because they haven't gone through this weird body-mind separation that we have. And healing is about befriending your body and learning to love your body and love the joy that your body can give you. Like,
You know, there was a little boy that we were working with, and he said, I can't sit still. My mother died. I'm inside out and upside down.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because nobody told him he should be different.
Right.
Right.
And he just inside out and upside down.
I always like to call my body my ride home.
It's where you live. It is your home. Like,
That's right. I'm there, and it's my ride
it's not
home.
optional, you know.
That's
where
so
you
you've got
live.
to take care of it.
Yeah, that's so right.
And pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And I want to mention that caregivers are often the last to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we, or all of us as caregivers, are so busy attending to others that it's often when we're personally in pain or something feels out of alignment that we say, I need to practice some of my own teachings. Like what Sharon Strauss said about embracing her art for her own healing and her own work. So self-care. And it's so, I've had a physical therapist say to me, well, isn't it strange that I don't know what to do with me? And I think that it's really, I think the day and age and the times that we live in, self-care is not optional.
Right.
For us to do our best work.
Well, we are ourselves.
Well,
We have no self if we don't take care of ourselves. There's nothing to give if you don't.
exactly.
Take care of
And my
that.
mom's
Absolutely.
always saying, take care of yourself and teach the world.
I think that that's so important. Just so.
Yeah, because working in this field, in these difficult fields with people, I mean, you can't just be a listening vehicle. You've got to be doing it and join with them and be part of the community. I mean, community is so important, right?
Because people who I teach say, so how do you get your person to do yoga? I say, you start doing yoga yourself. And
Right,
the moment that your
exactly.
patients see that you're an embodied person, they want to become just like you.
Exactly.
And the whole thing is you follow the examples. And if you're a frozen person, you go, so how do I become unfrozen? Because I don't want to be like you. Like, you know, it's all
Yeah.
about practicing what you preach.
Right.
I agree.
And you know, I don't think it's a choice. I'll have to say to people who are watching this show, they cause physical problems when we don't take care of ourselves physically, mentally, in every way. The body pays a toll.
Yeah.
You die.
Right.
Right.
You die mentally, you die spiritually, you die relationally. I mean, your body needs to be touched. You talked about a personal experience. I grew up during a famine in Europe, and 100,000 kids died in the Netherlands. And I was a little scrawny little survivor, and I held it in my body for ages. And then I got rolfed. I got this very deep tissue massage.
Yes.
And I could let go of that scrawny, scared little kid. That it was my body essentially. And of all the different things I've tried, I had to do that body stuff in order to start inhabiting a body that's alive now, instead of a body that was frozen as a little kid into famine and fear.
And what I love about some of this for our viewers is that they can go get massage and they can go get acupuncture, so they can just show up and go get it, and it will have a major benefit.
But you also, that's not always true. Huh?
Okay.
I mean, there is a thing, and I see that with yoga also, is that some people go to yoga to just get a firmer butt.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
the power yoga,
when
yeah.
people start feeling stuff, they just go away. And same thing with massages. Massages are just a go.
Exactly.
This is interesting. I didn't know this.
But what I tell people is that doing good body work is as complicated as doing neurosurgery. And the great body workers that I know, and I know some, luckily I know some, are incredibly skilled people. This is not one size fits all.
So they know how to open people up and get them in
they
touch.
know what they feel, and they see the tensions, and they feel the tightnesses.
Okay. So
these
don't just
these
go
are true
with
artists.
any body
Yeah,
worker. You need to find people to work for you. And thank you for watching the
Thank
fabulous
you.
having you on the show.
Love the work you guys are doing.
This is good.
Thank you so much.